Hey friends, this is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 4. This is a big brother to the ThinkPad Carbon. The Carbon it's one of the best laptops out there, especially in the Ultrabook space because it's thin and light, just 2.5 pounds, and it's got great battery life and performance. Now, this being the bigger brother means that it's going to be used in more powerful ways, right? It's more grown up and mature. So this is really geared towards, again, working professionals, but those who need more power than they do battery. So you're going to sacrifice battery life, not a whole lot, in order to gain more power. Okay, so let's do a tour of this device. And I'm using my tablet here as a camera instead of my camera. So let's see how this turns out. Hey, if you're watching this, that means I'm happy with how it turned out. All right, so on the right-hand side, we have a full-size SD card reader and two USB-A ports. These are 3.2 with a Kensington lock. You'll notice that there's a tapered wedge type layout here, this design, to make it appear thinner than it actually is. It's 0.7 inches thin, very thin design. On the back, there's nothing noteworthy. It's just, the back of the laptop, no ports or anything like that. On the other side, we have a proprietary power port. This is the same power port we've seen in Lenovo ThinkPads and IdeaPads for a long time. Two Thunderbolt ports, a full-size HDMI, it's 2.1, and a headphone jack. Now, with these three ports here, the two Thunderbolts and the HDMI, you can attach this device to multiple monitors and you can get up to 4K resolution. So that's going to be very valuable to people who dock this machine, whether it's at their home and or their office, or maybe like a vacation home because they're super rich and they can afford this thing. The price range is wide. Let's say it depends on sales, but around $1,500 all the way up to like $3,500. And we'll go over some of the options here in a bit. Now, on the back, nothing too crazy, just the ventilation. There are two rather large fans, relatively large fans, but they seem to be quiet. They don't run too often. I really only hear them when I have this plugged in, and I have in which case the Windows power settings are set to full power. Then that thing sort of launches. I do want to call out one more thing on the design, and that's this Lenovo badge. I just like this. I like to call this out. I think it looks cool. Now on this device, what I've noticed is that it's darker than you see on other Lenovo laptops. In fact, for example, let me show you this bad boy that I just got in for review from Lenovo. This beast, this is the 17-inch Legion 5. See how that badge is way more silver? The back, by the way, is a kind of an interesting dark blue, but in this case, you have a more pronounced Lenovo badge. I think the badge is really cool, and I love how they muted it. Okay, I said that there'd be one. There's one more. All right. If you look really closely at these edges, they're smoothed out and rounded. That's a really cool attention to detail from Lenovo. First of all, it's matte, so it's just more comfortable to hold. But the fact that they rounded this off means it's not going to poke your palms when you just pick it up and you move it around. I really like that. Okay, look really closely here. This thing here is a switch. It's a Think shutter. It's a manual Think shutter, which allows you to disable the camera if you don't want to use it. Now, I should rephrase that. It's not a complete disable, like it's technically still functioning, but it's blocked by a thin piece of plastic. So if anyone's spying on you, or you just really want to make sure your camera's off during a video conference, you can just do that real quickly. All right. My tablet's getting bounced around here. Okay, so as promised, here's more of the PC. This is the keyboard deck, and it's very nice. So you'll notice that the trackpad has these three buttons here. These are your traditional ThinkPad keys. This is mouse 1, 3, and 2. If you were to remove these, if Lenovo removed these, they can make the trackpad larger, but the problem with that is it's then going against the ThinkPad design language, which has been in play for over 2 decades. I actually prefer that they kept them in here, although I would like a bigger trackpad. The one that they have installed is glass, and it's one of the smoothest trackpads I've seen in a ThinkPad. That's very nice. If they were to make it wider, then as you're typing, your palm would run into the trackpad. Now that happens a little bit to me already, but I've got kind of meaty hands. But if they made it wider just to satisfy people who want to, keep up with the Joneses in the laptop world, they'd be creating a user challenge. And I'm glad that Lenovo didn't do that. All right, the keyboard. Now, the keyboard has been changed a little bit. The key travel has come down, but to me, it's just as comfortable as ever. I like this keyboard a lot. I think Lenovo continues to do a great job on the ThinkPad keyboards, to the point where I wish they would just transport the ThinkPad keyboard to all of their other machines, but they don't. They have a slightly different design on their Legions and on their IdeaPads and Yogas. Those three tend to have the same, while this one is a little bit different. Okay, the other thing is function and control are, of course, flipped in the ThinkPad. That's a classic ThinkPad design, along with the nub and the trackpad buttons. You can, however, in the Lenovo Vantage software, do a software switch. I don't like that, because then it says function that means control and vice versa. I prefer things to just be the way that they are labeled. So, but dealer's choice, do whatever you want. Alrighty, on the keyboard deck, we have dedicated keys for multimedia appear in, I'm calling it the third set of 4. The first set is right here. We have all the audio controls, including microphone mute and speaker mute. The second set has your display changes, like the brightness, for example. There is also airplane mode. And then you have those communication controls. And then finally, in the last set, are the home key. So home, end, insert, and delete. By pressing the power button, guess what? The computer turns on. I know, real shocker. So here what you're about to witness is actual boot time from Hibernate. No mysteries. All right, get this fired up. Okay, so now I'm inside the machine. I didn't think this far when I switched to my tablet. I'm gonna have to prop it up. Okay. All right, so what you get is a matte display on this particular model. This is an i7 with 16 gigs of RAM and just a half a terabyte SSD, but you can configure this with 8 gigs of RAM up to 32, with half a terabyte SSD up to 2 terabytes on the website, and the display can starts here at this Quad HD, but it can go up to a 4K resolution with touch, with a glass surface instead of matte, which is more reflective. So you have a lot of options here. Now, as far as battery life goes, I mentioned there's a trade-off. I'm getting about 6 hours versus the 9 hours that I was getting on the Carbon Gen 9. But this is a different device. It's a bigger display. It also has a bigger battery, but that's sort of the trade-off. Now, if you're going to be buying this laptop, you're likely a professional who's going to need to use the Office suite. So I want to show you how quickly the Office applications open when on battery mode. And in fact, I'm using better battery. So stage 2 out of 4 on the Windows power settings. It opened quite quickly. Let's open up Excel. Also very fast. And finally, we'll do PowerPoint. Bam. Okay, so you'll have no problem running your Office applications, and with at least 16 gigs of RAM, you can rest assured that you can have many, many, many apps open at once, and you'll have no problem, or documents is what I meant to say. Okay, the other use for this is going to be for those who need access to studio capability. So if you're doing 4K editing, 8K editing, 3D modeling, photo editing, video editing, this has a GeForce 3060 and an RTX 3060, but it's the GeForce Studio Edition. You could install the Studio Edition drivers, and you can install the Game Ready drivers and switch between them. So if you want to play video games, no problem. If you want to do, instead, if you want to do this, 3D, this photo editing and stuff, you can do that as well. It's just a quick switch, no problem at all. So I'm a big fan of that. That flexibility is awesome. Now I'm not a 3D editor person, so I can't do that. I can't realistically do a good review on that. So I'll try to, maybe I can find somebody who did and share it in the description, but rest assured that is a use case for this. Now you can equip this with as little as a 3050 Ti with 4 gigs of GDDR RAM, all the way up to a 3080 with 16 gigs of GDDR RAM. I need to check if that's a typo on Lenovo's builder, but 16 gigs of GDDR RAM, holy smokes. I mean, you're going to be able to do some good stuff with that. So it's very cool. So who is this for? As I've mentioned, it's definitely good for working professionals and those who want to do office work with a bigger display. This is 16-inch, 16 by 10, and maybe they don't want to go the Dell route, which is a pretty comparable alternative, I think, in the mind space at least. Like if you're looking at this, you've probably also looked at the Dell. But the problem with the Dell, however, is limited options in terms of the GPU, and the design is a little bit more, let's say, less durable. Finally, there's only Thunderbolt ports on it, so you don't get the HDMI or the USB 3.2 ports, USB-A's. I think those are critical for people who are working professionals and are going to be traveling. I really like this. I think Lenovo did a great job, of course. They typically tend to do a great job. But I would recommend this, again, if you're looking to do some 3D editing, modeling. Maybe you're a student or you're in a trade school where you're learning those types of things, or that's your major, I suppose. And then, of course, if you're a working professional, you want more screen real estate, you can stand to be away from a charger for 6 to 7 hours, depending on kind of how you treat this. I think that's a decent way to go. Okay. Oh, by the way, those 6 to 7 hours, that was with Chrome, a little bit of YouTube, and then, of course, the Office suite. I wasn't doing any like 3D modeling or gaming to get those hours. All right. Hope you found this helpful. Big thanks to Lenovo for sending it over for review.